Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Skywatch TV. Today we have an update for you on some challenges and some victories that are taking place this year regarding our charitable outreach camping program for the children of Whispering Ponies Ranch. We're about to outline for you some very specific areas of prayer that we need your help with, and we're also going to explain some dynamic things that God is already doing in the midst of what has definitely felt like a total rearranging of norms. I'm joined in the studio today by Skywatch TV's head of human resources, Cherise Parton, founder of Whispering Ponies Ranch, Nita Horn, my beautiful wife, Catherine Horn, Skywatch Television's social media director, Brittany Jackson, and the animal encounter specialist at Whispering Ponies Ranch, and my oldest daughter, Kate Horn. First, what are some of the challenges that I referred to just moments ago? Well, just prior to the beginning of our camping season at Whispering Ponies Ranch this year, we received notice from our insurance company that they were canceling our total policy. Now, this was one that we had had in place for several years, I believe over a decade.
Yeah.
And this was a policy, of course, that covered all of our buildings, our assets, our liability for guests, visitors, people staying overnight. And this cancellation came with very little notice. And so, of course, Cherise, you recall this.
Oh, absolutely.
You and I immediately began, you in particular, really working this over, began to reach out to several brokers, several of which that you've personally known for years as your
Right.
family and your husband used to work for another large camping ministry for decades and decades.
Exactly.
And so you know a lot of people.
Yeah, thankfully.
You began to thankfully.
Yes.
You began to reach out to several brokers and underwriters that were very confident.
Yeah.
They were sending us the emails almost daily. Relax. We're in an environment here where historically this is what you can expect. We
Yeah.
should have plenty of time to
Right.
get coverage so that there's no overlap
Yeah.
in coverage. When you first began reaching out, these brokers and underwriters were telling you that there would be several options for policies
Oh,
on
yeah.
the table well in advance of our Whispering Ponies Ranch camping season. One was even being described as a likely shoe-in.
Yeah.
Because this particular insurer had worked with this individual for decades.
Oh,
and
35 years. Yeah.
35 years, and his expectation was,
Yeah.
this is probably likely a shoe-in, and then at least 2 to 3 other options on the table.
Right, for sure.
So there was no reason to be overly alarmed at the time.
No, none whatsoever.
So we continued to move forward in faith that God was going to move some mountains around to make sure that our 2024 season was covered. Now, what did that look like? We had John Batchelder fly out
Yeah.
for the annual
Recertification.
recertification of both our staff that handle all of the rock walls, the zip lines.
Yeah.
He recertified the zip lines and the rock wall itself. He climbed up on
Right.
with all of his gadgetry and make sure that all the cables, no weather damage, all the things
Right.
that he looks at, the posts, he inspects for density. He puts calipers on the cable and makes sure that everything is in order and is safe.
Right, right.
My wife was doing food service for several weeks
Oh, yeah.
for the guest leadership who
Yeah.
were coming up for the pre-camp
Training.
season.
Trainings.
Right,
Yeah.
we were still holding trainings.
They're lodging with us. She's on the weekends because I've got the little kids. She's doing the food service. We're readying the animals,
Right.
the facilities. Ashley
yeah.
is,
The staff is-
readying
yeah.
the dining hall. Everything
Just
is.
had a new archery berm.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you. We actually, and I'll put a picture of this up, we actually, for the 2024 season, built
A new
a
archery.
brand
Yeah.
new archery season that
Yeah.
we were going to debut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we, in good faith, even despite this news, said, Lord,
We believe.
we are believing that this is going to happen, and we moved forward in faith
Absolutely.
Yep.
that there would be no gap. But a few days before our first camp was set to arrive, which would have been just days ago now, there appeared to be a shift in confidence coming from several of these brokers. They kind of went out and did a litmus test for us, and the reports that they began to send to us very recently now was that the climate for insurance companies and coverage
Yeah.
had shifted.
Hard
Yeah.
market.
something this year has transpired, and I'm not going to get into a ton of the details around what we speculate those shifts could be.
Yeah.
But we're finding out that it's not just Whispering Ponies
Right.
Ranch, it's thousands
Yeah.
now of churches in particular.
Absolutely.
And by the way,
Ministry
since this is
camps.
ministry camps,
Yeah.
church camps, anything focused on anything that resembles what we do
Right.
at Whispering Ponies Ranch,
Yeah.
and
Nationwide.
it's kind of a me too.
Yeah.
Now that we've put this out, others have contacted, churches have contacted, hey, us too, have you had any luck finding an underwriter?
Right.
So now we find ourselves in this position where we are in a line now
Yes.
of people all clamoring for the same kind of coverage.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of them can't get it if they're
Right.
further out west nationally.
So these brokers and underwriters started to kind of telegraph that we may be facing, further reaching delays than we had originally expected.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing that they began to inform us about was that the cost of this new change in the market,
Yeah.
that if you are finding a policy, you can expect, and I quote, astronomical hikes in
Right.
coverage.
At least
So-
double.
Yeah, at least double. Now, at the time of this recording, we find ourselves in uncharted waters, an unprecedented situation that
Yes.
if you'd have told me, 3 months ago that we
Yeah.
would be dealing with this, I would have said, you're nuts.
Something
Right.
we've never
We've been with
experienced.
these people for a long time. This is what they do.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like we have a series of catastrophic injuries.
No, right.
You know, like large claims or anything like that. And I want to emphasize that by the time you see this video, we may have already started receiving phone calls that there are now options on the table. So this could
Yes.
change at any second, which is why we remain steadfast, committed. Our facilities are ready.
Yep.
Our staff is on standby. Our amenities are ready. They're
Everything.
inspected. They're certified. They're ready to go.
Very optimistic.
We're very optimistic.
Right.
And we've seen some breakthrough, and I'll tell you about that in just a minute. And then we're going to share some stories about what God has done in the midst
Spite of
of
it.
this
Right,
rearranging.
right.
It's like, God, what is this lesson?
Yeah.
You've allowed this. What is this lesson? And we're going to highlight just a snapshot. And I'll even explain why I look so silly today. Where's his suit? But anyway, we have, at the time of this recording, though, had to begin partnering with the Royal Family Kids organization that would historically bring their children to Whispering Ponies Ranch in an effort to find alternative locations for them to have camp. Now, were we to allow to have visitors, for those wondering, and we were to experience, let's say, a catastrophic injury or an event
Right.
related to one of our facilities, it could potentially damage us financially in irrecoverable ways.
Absolutely.
And in the long run, jeopardize our ability to continue serving the
Entire
historic
ministry
model.
as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of these amenities were erected at times where financially there was a more robust environment to dream and build
Right,
big things. This
right.
was when my father was alive, and he was
Yeah.
a big dreamer.
Yeah.
Now, because of the financial construct that we find ourselves in, with donations being way down and the costs of everything being way up,
Oh, absolutely.
the thought of having to replace a building that originally costed
Oh, there's no
many
way.
hundreds of thousands.
Right.
Yeah.
Materials are through
No.
the roof from
So,
inflation.
again, we stand steadfast, we are ready, and we are waiting for the Lord to show us what the next move is.
Absolutely.
Right.
I want to highlight what in part he's already done. So, again, without getting into the boring weeds, there's lots of layers to the types of insurance that you need when you run a camp like Whispering Ponies Ranch.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
not just for your assets for,
Right.
let's say, flood, storm, damage,
Right.
tornado.
Right.
It's also general liability.
Yeah.
We were facing, just a couple of weeks ago, a potential gap in coverage even on the assets, which would have meant that we could be very vulnerable to
Very.
like a storm or
Absolutely.
a tornado, meaning you
We've
would
had
lose.
a lot of those lately.
We've had a lot of those. So I'm
Yeah.
like, Lord,
Yeah.
Right.
we need coverage on these assets,
At
because if
least
we have
the
another
buildings.
tornado take
Right.
last year with the trees coming down on some of the buildings and stuff, financially this is going to be a giant hit.
Right.
So you're in control. We're asking you to help us with this.
Yeah.
And he did. He did come through. We
Yes.
do have a policy
Praise the
now.
Lord.
Thank God,
Yeah.
literally. We
Yes.
do have a
Yes.
policy now on all of the assets.
Right.
Yeah.
And there were reasons why that was even unlikely at the time.
Yeah.
So that was a total God thing, moving some mountains around for us. We do have coverage on our assets. Now, the coverage on just the assets is more than twice what we were paying just 6
For
months
the
ago.
entire policy.
For the entire policy plus general liability,
Right.
which would have meant injury, et cetera.
All the things.
So we're already seeing that what has been foretold is the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I do find an underwriter that comes back and says, we can provide the part of your coverage that has to do with liability, injury,
Right.
Right.
other things, visitation, overnight
Right.
guests, lodging, that kind of thing. Right now, we are kind of expecting it could be astronomical. And again, the Lord is in control, and we
Right.
believe that He cares about this ministry, and He wants to see these
Absolutely.
children here. So again, Lord, what is the lesson?
Yeah.
Okay? In just a minute, we're going to highlight a couple of very specific areas of prayer that you can partner with us when
Yes.
we petition the Lord for solutions to some of these challenges. And I want to highlight now some of the ways that He's already begun to rearrange and to move things so
Yeah.
that kids aren't missing camp. First,
Absolutely.
by the grace of God, even late in this season, we've been able
Yeah.
to partner with several of our camps, and the ones that are still looking are still being aggregated to places that are opening their doors.
Yes.
We've been able to
graciously.
make new friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we've made new partners first, and for the purposes of privacy, I will exclude first and last names
Yeah.
and even locations, because again, where these children are camping is
Absolutely.
not for public
Right.
consumption.
Right.
So, but we've made new friends and partners
Yeah.
with neighboring campgrounds that did not know we existed.
Right.
They did not know about the mission of Whispering Ponies
Right.
Ranch or what
Absolutely.
Skywatch TV is all
Right.
about.
Right.
Right.
And so there's kind of a bond being forged, maybe
Right.
for some longer term
Oh,
ministry,
yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
where they are now taking some of these camps in
Yeah.
that would normally be at Whispering Ponies Ranch. And
Right.
we have actually last week, and I'm going to explain some of all this, partnered with the Royal Family Kids Organization at these other locations to
Right.
continue to make sure
Yes.
that the children that you love and
Right.
support are receiving their Jesus encounter at a Royal Family Kids camp.
Absolutely.
So while temporarily some of these locations are not Whispering Ponies Ranch, we remain absolutely committed to
Yes.
the vision
Of
of
what
what
we're
happens
about.
at Whispering Ponies Ranch.
Exactly.
And God is kind of broadening our series of alliances now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is that some of these campgrounds have learned about our dilemma and have gone to the same insurers now and said, is my policy intact? And they've been basically told, we cannot cancel you until September.
Right.
Until
Whenever
their
your
premium
renewal date.
Yes.
When
Your
it, yeah,
premium
so the
renewal.
absolute renewal date. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a wink, wink
telltale.
telegraph.
Yeah.
Because if you want to continue business with somebody, what you might say is, don't listen to the scuttlebutt. Your insurance policy is solid.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is a trend of church camps, basically any apparatus that is attached to children-focused ministries,
Yep.
a place where they're going to have an encounter with
Exactly.
Jesus, is basically under assault.
Yep.
Yes.
We feel like this was kind of a Luciferian last-minute assault, but I don't want to give him credit for things
Right.
because God only allows for things.
That's true.
Absolutely.
So maybe this was his big weaponized last-minute blunder, and now these other camps have been put on notice. They're already preemptively looking for,
Way much more
Yes.
time
as a
than we
result of
had.
seeing what
Yeah.
we're dealing with.
Yes.
Is this making sense?
Absolutely.
100%.
So we've made new partners. Camps are moving forward.
Yes.
God is doing amazing things in the lives of these children. And I want to tell you something. Our family now, for the first time in over 22 years, going all the way back to the early 2000s at Camp Davidson, where many of our viewers know that that's where our family first fell in love with the Royal Family Kids
Right.
Yeah.
and learned of what they do. And
Yeah.
then, years and years later came back to
Right.
partner with them, Wayne Tesh, you know the whole story. With all of that having been said, the many, many years of running the zip lines and recertifying the rock walls and doing the food service and cleaning the toilets and
Right.
cleaning the bedding and
Yep.
feeding the animals and
Pool
all of the
chemicals.
stuff, the
Yeah.
therapeutic training with the animals and all the things.
Yeah.
The one thing that we had never had the opportunity to do is be on the other side as a support staff or a counselor
Right.
who's not running the kitchen,
Exactly.
who's not running the rock wall,
Or animals.
maintaining the carabiners
Really
or the equipment that
interfacing with the
goes
kids.
cleaning the beds. No,
Yeah.
this is 100% locked into the cabins
Yep.
with a direct responsibility for these troubled children. And let me tell you, we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But I wanted to give you a highlight of what God is already doing in this shift. We can feel that he's rearranging some things that we pray are going to mean some long-term infrastructural things that make us better.
Absolutely.
I don't ever want to be in this position again,
No kidding.
Right.
right?
No kidding.
But last week, when I was out in the middle of nowhere with
No
next
cell-
to zero
no
cell
cell
phone
service.
reception, literally, there was this one part of the mountain where I was able to barely get reception enough to do just fundamental.
Text me, do we have insurance?
And it was, what was I doing, Cherise?
Text me, do we have insurance?
Did one of the underwriters come back?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's been constantly a focus of
Yeah.
everybody here at
Yes,
Skywatch
it
TV and
has
Whispering
been.
Ponies Ranch. But yes, last week, even with my little granules of cell phone service, was Cherise, where we at? You know,
Yeah.
where we tidying up, moving forward. What did they say? What's the scuttlebutt? But I wanted you to know that if you have supported this ministry via prayer or even financially, you need to know that one of the things we're going to be able to do this year now is help some of these camps that have taken in our WPR refugees.
Right,
Yes.
And ask these new partners, what do you suspect your food service budget now costed you as a result of taking on this burden?
Sure.
right.
We're going to be able to help underwrite some of this food, some of the
Right.
expense. So we can only do that because of prayerful support from viewers just like you. But also you need to know that money raised for Whispering Ponies Ranch is in a totally restricted fund and earmarked for use in the exact way that the money was raised for. So one way or another, it's absolutely committed to the children
children,
of
yeah.
Whispering
Yeah.
Ponies Ranch, regardless of where their locations may be
Right.
temporarily.
Yes.
Does
Right,
that make sense?
absolutely.
Yep.
So why is Uncle Joe
Yeah.
wearing this silly hat? Well, first, if you watch Skywatch television, you know that I'm completely bald, and it takes about 4 minutes for me to have a craterous sunburn. Yeah. Talk about a catastrophic
Yeah.
injury to my head,
Yeah.
right, Therese?
No, thank you.
So my wonderful wife, last week, in preparation for this, we literally went to this other facility.
Yeah.
We were there. My oldest daughter and my middle daughter, Juanita and Kate, served as counselors and support staff. They
Yeah.
didn't even leave the campgrounds. They were in the cabins
Yeah.
Yeah.
serving these kids. And again, this was an experience that we had never, ever gotten to experience before.
Right.
And as you can imagine, it was a blend of absolute adrenal burnout.
There's that.
I can't compare it to anything. It's not like if you were in a room of children, even at a church nursery. There
Right.
is no comparison
Right.
to being with a partner in a cabin. You always have to remain 2 deep,
Yeah.
Yep.
which means you've got your support staff there. One person's always requesting the assistance of another person, whether a
Right.
child needs to leave to go get a drink, or now it's
The
time to go to the
bathroom.
cafeteria, or it's time to go take a bathroom break,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's one adult with the door open, standing in the gap here, another eye here, one in here. Like there's adults everywhere.
Right.
It's
Right.
literally almost a 1-to-1
It's eyes
ratio.
on.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if one of them becomes a runner,
Right.
you have
Oh,
to have
yeah.
2 people there
Right.
who can take off into the forest
Right.
Yep.
to follow them.
Right.
Not to
It
put
happens.
hands on them.
It
You're not
happens.
dragging them back to the activity, literally following
You
them. I
just
did a
have
little
to-
bit of that this week.
Yes, you
Yes.
did.
Following through the forest with a 2-way radio with my wife,
Yep.
Yeah.
because this young man just decided that he was going to traipse through the forest. And you have to almost wait for them to lose interest in the forest and self-elect to come back to the program. First, you may notice a bunch of signatures on my shirt. And we'll just go ahead and, move in a 360 so you can kind of see this. You'll never see them all. Maybe we'll take a picture of the shirt later. Every person on this t-shirt is special. And it represents a very small number of the people that actually camped there, because a lot of the girls on the girls' side didn't really get to know me very well. It was only at events like the talent show where they would see
Right.
me.
Right.
Because I was way more engaged, obviously, as a man,
Right.
with the 2 boy cabins.
Right.
We had
Right.
9 boys, and all 9 boys, and then some of the girls and some of the counselors have signed this t-shirt on the last day. But there's a couple, and I got stories with every one of these, but there's a couple I just wanted to throw out because one of them I literally nearly lost it. So I want to start by telling you about Bryson. Bryson is a very hyper boy. He's been identified as one of these with all kinds of attention deficit disorders.
Yeah.
Very sweet boy, but his attention span is about 2 seconds. And then if you're not constantly moving the group, he wants to run. So it is absolutely a game of pretzeling yourself and judoing yourself into every direction to keep Bryson engaged and in line for lunch, but then make sure that
Yeah.
Marcus isn't darting, and we
Right.
got it right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm doing like this with my hands. That's the way it felt all week. And
Choir director.
choir director. But I look for anything that I can use to affirm kids.
Right.
It's just, it's one of my things, okay?
Yes.
We have counselors that are a lot softer spoken. And what's amazing, like my nephew John was a counselor this week because he's a softer spoken person. I got to watch some of the shyer boys
Gravitate.
that have a lot of
Yeah.
social anxiety
Yes.
gravitate to him.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a young man named Seth who John absolutely became a hero to because
Yeah.
it was one of the days it had rained a little bit and John gave him his coat. He was
my
cold.
goodness, that's
That was
so
it.
cool.
John's his hero, right? That boy wept on Friday having to say goodbye
He
to
did.
John.
Oh my
He
gosh.
did.
He was a wreck because John,
He
you
did.
know, he's looking at life without John, and we're hoping that we can, come back next year. We'll
next
see you
year.
again.
Yeah.
Where I'm kind of in the room, you can see that now. He won't stop talking. I'm serious. I'm going to let others share in it, but that's kind of my style. I'm in a room, and what's dichotomous is I'm actually a total social introvert. But when I feel like I'm expected to interact and build and create energy, that's the role that I get into.
Yeah.
So I come in a room and it's, hey boys, good morning. Who we got here? Oh, look at this guy. Did you see how big his muscles are? How tall is this guy? Oh my goodness, he remembered the song from, what a memory. We got a scholar here. Boys, like it's that all day.
The hype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot for some of
Joe's
the
the
other
hype
adults.
guy.
Yeah, I'm the hype guy. You can almost
guy.
see some of the other counselors like glad that I'm there for the kids, but
Like, dude, it's
find
too
a lid
early.
for me.
Turn it down.
Turn it down
Just a notch.
just a notch. But I can't help it because the little kids.
They
Right.
eat it up.
But I did see the contrast this week. Some of the boys that are socially just apprehensive
Sure.
and
Oh, yeah.
anxious didn't gravitate to me as quickly.
Right.
I've never
took
seen
them a
that
few
side of
days.
it because I only have these short intervals
Right.
at a zip line.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're there for a week,
Yeah.
it's a different deal.
Immersed.
You kind of have to measure your energy around some of these kids.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I learned things.
Yeah.
Bryson, high energy. He's a runner if he's bored. And we were doing random crafts. And it's like some kids are finger painting, some of them are tie dyeing a t shirt. But they had these pipe cleaners. And I'm just going to
Yeah.
show you some of these. These little pipe cleaners. I don't know if you can see all those. Bryson walks up to me at random and he hands me, it was one of the smaller ones like this, and I couldn't get it on my hand. It was a little tiny, but he was making bracelets. He was making bracelets out of pipe cleaners, right?
Yeah.
Well, I affirmed that right away. And of course, I marveled and made the whole room understand that, hey guys, we got a manufacturer on our hands. Are you seeing Bryson? Look at this. I'm telling you, this boy, if he wants to, he can grow up, he'll have a monopoly on bracelets. Look at this guy. Look at his craftsmanship. So then he walks over and he grabs two different colors. Now he's doing his pipe cleaners, And he brings me a second one.
It's larger.
Yeah, and it's much bigger now. He took note to the fact that I couldn't wear all of them, right? So this goes on. I'm going to shorten the story. This goes on for about a half hour, probably 25 to 32-ish minutes. And I got 2 flowers out of the deal.
Oh, my.
Look at this.
So cute.
He made little flowers out of pipe cleaners.
Put those on your desk.
They are on
your
my
pen.
desk.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
Yeah,
They're going
it's
to probably
perfect.
go on my pen holder. But he made little flowers out of pipe cleaners and a whole bunch of these bracelets. He keeps bringing them to me, and I'm just going on and on. Well, Bryson and I bonded that day, and that was pretty early on. And so he became, one of the little heroes and a part of the Horn regime and part of the club, right?
Right.
And felt 10 feet tall that he had cornered the market on pipe cleaner
bracelets.
bracelet manufacturing. That's right. 2 more very quickly. Counselor Dale. This little boy on
Yeah.
like the first day is doing the motions to the songs, and there's lots of motions during the song service and words, and I don't remember many of the words because I'm older now. But these kids, Dale is doing the songs and he's doing the animations, and it was the simplest thing in the world. I just said after the service, I said, Dale, you've got a great memory. You could be a counselor someday with that kind of memory and your ability to perform in front of a crowd. Man, he loved that so much that within 1 or 2 hours, he is now, Uncle Joe, look what Counselor Dale's doing next. Like he was referring to himself in the third person as
That's
Counselor
funny.
Dale.
That's
The
hilarious.
whole week.
We're all week. We're playing soccer, and he's like, Uncle Joe, did you see what Counselor Dale just did?
And
Counselor Dale.
his whole demeanor, his countenance, he
Yeah.
walking like a chicken with his
Puffed up.
It's
so
just puffed
proud.
up.
Just
Yeah.
this big Cheshire smile with all the confidence in the world coming
Yeah.
out of his little face.
On the last day, they have these little tiny, we call them warm fuzzies, but they're these little tiny cloth balls for crafts.
Oh, yeah,
They're a
yeah.
little
Pom-poms,
pom-pom.
like the
Yeah.
pom-poms.
You know,
They call them warm fuzzies.
yeah, the Royal Family Kids Camp organization calls them warm fuzzies, and they give them to children and counselors. And if somebody does something that week that is of note to you,
That's cute.
and you feel like it was special or
Yeah.
they moved your heart away, you give them a warm fuzzy,
Right.
Right.
right? And that can also act as a good diversion if one of the children is wanting to be physically
Right.
engaged with you
Right.
as a result of how you made them feel. You can kind of turn to the side, hang on, and you present a warm fuzzy.
Right.
So it's a misdirect
Yep.
from a child who only knows
Right.
A redirect.
physical affection,
Yeah.
and maybe that's not appropriate.
Right.
Right.
They also asked me to MC the talent show, and it was kind of a last-minute deal. And Max basically said, "Just go nuts, do it your way." But the scuttlebutt was they wanted big energy. And I'll just give you my opener. I said, "Welcome to the Royal Family Kids Talent Show." And yay! I was told later some of the counselors that have been there for years and years and years were like, "Yes."
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
They were.
Just because I ran it like a game show.
Yeah.
Total production, right?
It was a total game show host type deal.
Yeah, and every kid got a review.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So they come up and do a dance, and I'm like, "Did you see the execution on that? Perfect timing, perfect
Yeah.
cadence. The landing on that cartwheel landed perfectly." So they all felt like they got a review. Anyway,
So cute.
So
It was-
some of the
it was
kids too,
wonderful.
just to throw that out
Yeah.
there, some of the kids that were too shy to do it, once they saw that all the other kids were getting those accolades,
true.
then they were like, "Oh, I think I want to try and do
Yep.
something now."
yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
They went on, and actually they went into overtime because we kept asking the directors of the camp, do we have time for more? Because the kids kept wanting to do more.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was great. The energy was wonderful.
So your Skywatch training
It was
paid
awesome.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my Skywatch training paid off. I was able to entertain a group full of kids and make
Yeah.
it kind of a razzmatazz, as my dad would have called it. I got one more very quick one, and then I really want to hear from you guys. So to button up my Counselor Dale story, at the end of the week, I gave him a warm fuzzy, and we fist bumped because he had been saying, "I'm coming back as a counselor. I'm coming back as a counselor. I'm coming. You're going to see, man. I'm coming back as a counselor." So we fist bumped, and I said, "This is a promise. I'm giving you this warm fuzzy. This is a promise that unless life presents reasons we can't be here, we're going to see each other again someday. And when I do, it's because Counselor Dale's going to be full counselor." This little guy shadowed me all week. At one point, we're in the back of the chapel, and he was training for counselor duty,
That's hilarious.
keeping
Yeah.
his eyes on the back door to make sure none of the kids
Oh,
escape,
so
right?
Oh,
cute.
that's so cute.
You know what I mean?
That's so funny.
And then I had to reel it in a little bit because he wanted to almost start standing up and kind of policing the door.
Barney
I'm like, "Hey,
Fife.
Dale, we're not police officers, man. We gotta."
Barney fifing it up.
Yeah, he's starting to Barney Fife it up a little bit. But we fist bumped, and then on the last day, he told me, he said, "I'm not going to forget my promise. I'm coming back as a counselor."
Yeah.
That got me to wobbling, and it's the last day. But here's the one that really almost put me over the edge, and I only as a professional was able to kind of
Right.
Yeah.
Choke it back.
mechanically choke it down and not lose it.
Yeah.
There was one boy, and this is my last story, I promise. But the first day we're in the cabin, he is jumping from one top bunk to the others. And if you've been around any of the children like the ones I'm describing, or if you've done any social work or
Right.
child advocacy or been around this type of stuff, you can identify a lot of tells.
Yeah.
My gut was telling me that this poor boy, for whatever reason, because I don't know his backstory, is likely one that they've labeled ADHD,
Right.
maybe with a little bit of passive aggressive tendency to want to be violent, maybe on a trigger. I just,
Right.
he had a giant personality.
Yeah.
You could feel immediately, okay, Steve is going to be a force to reckon with this week.
Yeah.
And it's lots of clues. It's how fast he's talking when he's not making eye contact.
Oh,
It's the
yeah.
fact that you're struggling right out of the gate to get his attention, and he's wanting to
Yeah.
dig in other people's things. You see what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah.
Okay, take a breath. And because of his big personality, I'm thinking, how do I frame this in a positive? So it just, within the first hour, Big Steve, right?
Yeah.
So I said, all right, Big Steve, you got to listen up, buddy. We're getting ready to go to lunch, man. You got to get your shoes on. We got to unpack. We got to get your bunk set up. Right. Big Steve, hey, Big Steve. Well, he kind of liked that, right? some big bald guy that he's never seen is calling him Big Steve. Yeah. Within about 2 hours now, where it's like 10 a.m. when this is happening now, it's noon. We're over at the dining hall for lunch. And he walks up to me unsolicited from the lunch line and he goes, "You're my guy."
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm your guy. And he goes,
duly noted.
He looks around. Yeah, so far, he premises it with so far. So far, you're my favorite guy. You're my guy.
Putting you on notice.
Yeah, he was kind of putting me on notice, but his appraisal let me know this could be a finite
exactly
relationship, right?
That's so funny.
And I said, Big Steve, I'm going to try not to let you down. Okay, buddy? Fist bump, fist bump. Throughout the week, Steve would go through, victories and setbacks, high points, low points. Wednesday, I'm calling it his nuclear meltdown, where it was just heart-wrenching because over absolutely nothing at a swimming pool event, this other little boy was making something up about Steve that was totally bogus, but now they're in friction. And Steve went from 0 to 1,000 and had to be physically restrained from hitting himself and then ran into a bathroom stall and locked himself in the stall and is now screaming multiple expletives about how he hates his dad and that this other boy reminds him of his dad.
Oh, my gosh.
And he is screaming, I hate him. I don't want to tell you
like
all.
A trauma trigger.
Trauma trigger and lots of things I don't really want to say on this program.
Sure.
The things he's exfoliating, the different things he's going to do to himself as a result of this, the things he wants to do to the other boy as a result of this, lots of
It's
expletives.
the reality of these kids,
Yeah.
what
Oh,
they've gone
for sure.
through.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, it was.
Absolutely.
So for 20-something years, my relationship to that has been the leadership steps in, and I go back to my activity. Now I am the guy.
You're the guy.
I'm there with a co-counselor named Zach, and there is no backup
Right.
immediately.
Right.
So we radioed for the camp director, Max, and Max was there within about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But we had to physically detain this boy from injuring himself. They did in training. They said if you have to prevent injury from someone hurting themselves or someone else,
Right.
you can physically detain, but we're not putting hands on kids to discipline. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It was
Pulling him away
literally
from
he was
dangers.
smacking
Yeah.
his own face. Well, so anyway, this was kind of the arc of when Steve and I really bonded even more, and that was when he started coming out of this, which was mostly waiting for him to de-escalate.
Yeah.
Right.
There was no reasoning with Big Steve.
Right.
There's no let's talk about choices. If you've ever
Right.
seen, and,
Yeah.
and again, there's people that have been through this that know what I mean by this.
Sure.
When you've been through an experience like that and you've seen what I'm describing, you realize their logic, their literal pineal gland,
Yeah.
their pituitary gland, all of their hormones, all of their
Chemistry.
thought center, the chemistry, it's not like you're talking to a rational person in that moment.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Choices, there's nothing you can leverage. You kind of have to wait for them to calm down on their own and then try to reapply logic, choices. Here's what
Yes.
happened.
Right.
This poor little boy and I now walk back up to the pool, and I swear to you, he looks up at me and he goes, "Who was it that made me mad?"
Aww.
He literally couldn't even recall what had happened.
Yeah.
He literally couldn't even
Gosh.
recall what had happened. So I had to say, well, it was Marcus, and let's go talk to Marcus. He walks up, "Marcus, can I give you a hug?"
Aww.
Because he just wanted to fix it.
Right.
Right.
And Max looked at me and he said, "You've witnessed your first case of what's called transference." Their brain goes from 0 all the way back to what daddy did, what Uncle Bill did, what
Right.
grandma did, what mom did, what
Right.
trafficker did.
Right.
What,
Exactly.
and they are not in their right
Sound.
mind in
Right.
that
Right.
moment. They are all the way back
In the
to
trauma.
level 50 trauma.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they have to kind of come to, and now you can resume therapy or whatever.
Yeah.
So Big Steve all week, man, he became kind of like the counselors are looking at me. Big Steve's starting to escalate. I had to basically sit with Big Steve, be with Big
Yes.
Steve, be at Big Steve's side. Big Steve is escalating. Uncle Jody, you got any more tricks in your bag of tricks? And I'm
Right.
sitting there under my breath. Father God, give me whatever.
Exactly.
Right.
You're just on pins and needles.
Exactly.
You're,
Yeah.
Right.
Are there any breaks to this train? Okay, wow, somehow we got away from another episode.
And
Yeah.
trying to make their camp experience something that's joyful and memorable
Yeah.
and fun.
Yes.
And it was.
Absolutely.
It really was. He actually told me, like, on Wednesday, we're throwing football back and forth. And for a half second, he thought I was getting bored with him. This comes out of a place of not feeling like anyone would ever want
Loneliness,
to be
yeah.
near
with
him.
him.
Right.
But we're throwing a Nerf football back and forth outside on free time, which was basically quasi-organized sports to keep them engaged. And he goes, Uncle Joe, are you getting bored? I said, no, man, right now I'm throwing football with Big Steve. All right, just making sure you're not getting bored. A few minutes had gone
Cute.
by. It's time for
Yeah.
whoever to lose interest in him.
Well,
Yeah.
most kids nowadays aren't growing up with a father. So that
Yeah.
was probably the first time something as simple as throwing a ball was even
Oh my gosh, yes.
directed to somebody like that.
It's a good
That's
point.
not another kid.
Yeah.
I
a
could go
good
on
point.
and on and on. Friday was a near again nuclear holocaust emotional meltdown.
Yeah.
When another child got a graduation present and he didn't, and then right
Yeah.
away they gave him a parting gift, which is a little iPad that kind of saved the moment.
It's
But
an iPod. It has all the music.
yeah, sorry, an
from the week.
iPod. It's
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
little kid songs for the week and all the little Bible songs they've been
Yeah.
learning. And
Yeah.
It has all of the curriculum, and they get it every year. They get a little
To take
iPod
the-
thing that they can listen to with the music on it.
I'm going to put a picture up on the screen here in just a minute that's going to explain the moment I almost lost it. So now it's Friday. He's been Big Steve all week.
Yeah.
Uncle Joe and Big Steve, right?
Yep.
And every year, the Royal Family Kids organization gives these children a little fill out.
Right.
Friday morning, what did you like about
Right.
camp?
Right.
Yeah.
And he's, food service. I liked the swing set,
Right.
whatever.
Right. Whatever it was.
yeah, whatever it was.
The swimming pool.
I liked the talent show, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Big Steve goes through a couple of superficial things, like he likes the zip line, whatever. And then he starts putting Uncle Joe, John,
Yes.
Grandma Blam.
Right?
Those of you that don't know, my mom at this camp went as Grandma Blam.
Yay.
And so he's putting all the counselor names down, and he turns it in. That almost got me there.
Yeah.
I'm like, lower lip starting to shake.
Yeah.
And I had sunglasses on, to kind of conceal some of what I was feeling. And I'm certain that they were teary at times. But then he comes back like 3 minutes later. Hang on, I forgot something. You got to give me my paper. You got give me paper. So give him his paper back, and he writes something down and he hands it back in. He had added the word "big" right before Steve.
Yep.
That's so cute.
Yep.
This was totally his idea.
New persona.
I didn't
Big
put this
Steve.
thought in his head.
Right.
It was just the entire week of what was
A new idea.
this turbulent hurricane of, can we keep Steve happy? What's going on with Steve?
Yeah.
And he confiscates his paper briefly enough to put the word "big" right in front of Steve. And when he handed it in, I realized, for however long, maybe permanent, maybe forever, maybe this was meant for that years from now, somebody somewhere will remind him of what happened once upon a time.
Yeah.
You never know what the Holy Spirit's doing. But that day, he added the word "big."
That's so cute.
Part of his identity had been affirmed. He is now leaving this camp, Big Steve.
Right.
He's going to do big things.
Big Steve.
Yep.
That's so sweet.
Counselor Dale. That's where I nearly lost it. Deep breathing just to kind of recover. And guys, I don't have a monopoly on this week. Zoom into my shirt if you would. I just want to show you a couple of these names. You might see where it says Counselor Dale. Do you see it? What do we got here? Big Steve. I don't know if you can see that. We got Gavin. Man, so many. Bryson. Layla. Layla was this little girl that asked me if she could wear my hat. She saw Paisley get to wear my hat.
Yes, it passed around.
And it
a
passed
little bit.
around who gets to wear Uncle Joe's hat next. I don't want to monopolize all the stories because I wasn't the only one there, and everybody there, including the counselors I didn't get to talk with very much. They had stories like that at infinitum.
Sure.
Just 1 week
Right. Absolutely.
of what happens at these Royal Family Kids camps.
It took me a couple of days of being part of the camp and not a facilitator, as I've always been,
Right.
to actually really understand what my part was supposed to be. So it took me a couple of days to kind of adapt.
Right.
could
Even
say the
though
same.
they honored me to be the grandma of the camp, which I didn't know they would because I always thought they had to have a grandpa also, but apparently not. But they allowed me to do that. They asked me what would I like for my name to be, because they'll put on your name tag what you want to be identified as. And I used the name Blam because that's what my grandkids call me. Mm-hmm. And I felt like if I'm going to get to be grandma to these little kids, I want to be as real as I can.
Oh, yeah.
So some of them would look at me really puzzled, like,
Blam.
Blam? And then when I would explain, well, my other little grandkid could not say Graham, so they called me Blam, and that just kind of stuck. And then they're like, oh, it came a real personal thing to them to
Right.
get to call me the same thing that my grandkids.
Oh,
and
sure.
having several of my grandkids there
Right.
Yeah.
made them feel more like family, because now Kate really was Aunt Kate.
Yeah.
Right.
And Nita Lee really was Aunt Nita.
Cousin
or
Nita.
sister or cousin or
Yeah,
whatever.
She was cousin Nita always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that became a real eye-opening thing for me. And, there's always just that one. Mm-hmm. There's always a one. For whatever reason, kind of gravitated to me instantly. And I don't know if it was because I was doing the affirmation thing. She showed me this little craft that she made. And it was out of duct tape and the rolls that when the duct tape is empty, you have these little. And she had made herself a little water bottle holder. And I was, oh my gosh, that's so creative. And so one of the kids stuck their water bottle and it fit. And I'm going, oh my goodness, I so need something like that. Well, you can have it. So she gave it to me on the spot. And I'm like, I really didn't see that coming. And that was not why I said that. I was trying to affirm her talent
Right.
and her creativity. Well, then, that was it. After that, the next thing she brought it to me. And if I had thought about it, I would have she made me some little teddy bears
Out of
pipe
pipe
cleaners.
cleaners.
And I haven't experienced where they just, when we're at our camp at the Whispering Ponies, it's always Kate and Nita Lee, the younger ones, that get the warm fuzzies. I got warm fuzzies this year, and I got teddy bears. And this one little girl, and her name was Aubrey, when it was time for her to say her goodbye, they get these little memory books that are just photos that have been taken of them throughout the week. And there was one that was in the back that just was of her all by herself. And it was a really cute picture. I said, what a beautiful picture of you. That is such a cute picture. And right there on the spot, she tore it out of her little book and handed it to me. Aww. I want you to have this. That was about where I almost lost it. Because, I'm sorry, that just doesn't happen. When you're facilitating, especially when you're the old grandma person over here that's telling the rules. You can't do this and you have to do that. The kids I'm not their favorite sometimes when I'm telling them the things for their safety.
Right.
Right.
They like the ones that are doing the good, fun things. So anyway, that was fun for me to kind of, in a sense, let my grandma down and
Right.
just be a person and interact with the kids one-on-one. It was very interesting and very memorable. And anyway, that was my highlight. There's more, but that's the one that I'll share today.
Well, I was a counselor this year, and that was one of the coolest things that I could have ever been able to be. And the counselors, there's difference between support staff and counselors.
Right.
So the support staff, they aren't with the children like 24/7, and they're not necessarily assigned to specific children. They just help with
They're
everyone.
kind of floaters, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And so, but I was a counselor, and I had a co-counselor. Her name was Savannah, and she was probably the greatest co-counselor I could have ever gotten as a first,
newbie?
yeah, as a newbie. Because I kind of just jumped in and was hoping that I, could swim. Because
Showed you the ropes.
she
helped
really
you out.
did. And she'd been doing it for, the last few years. But I had 4 girls in my cabin, and the one sad thing about it is that all the girls in my cabin, because they were the older girls, they were graduates. And so it was
Yeah, so
Oh
this
my
is their
gosh.
last year in the
it was their
program.
last year in the program, unless if they come back as a counselor or unless if they are able to go through Teen Reach, which is,
next
after
Teenager,
exactly.
Yeah.
Which
It's
we
a
also
teenager
partner with.
ministry, Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes
Exactly.
over,
So it was the best week ever, and I was able to really connect with all of the girls in my cabin. I learned a lot for sure.
Yeah.
And your co-counselor really thought a lot of you. She had a moment where she pulled me aside and said that she wants you to be counselor with her all the time.
No, I know.
It asked me if I could be her counselor for next year, and I had to tell her that I wasn't sure, but that I could definitely try. But
Because your job will change again once we can start resuming having camps at Whispering Ponies, because you won't have the freedom to be a counselor because you'll have your regular job that you usually have with the animals and the rock wall and all of that.
I go
So-
from managing goats to managing little children, and so that was very different.
Which actually kind of dovetails into another point that I was going to make throughout this broadcast, and that is that this camp season literally started this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only been one camp
Yeah.
week. We are already talking to Cody Ragland's group, Will and Kelly Johnson. We are talking to Alice Beckett. We are trying to find, what do you need? A worship leader? What do you need?
Right,
Somebody on
right.
the drama team?
Fill
What do
in
you-
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's at least 3 other potential groups that may be displaced to go and serve in the same capacity that we
Right.
just finished. So,
Right.
but we're kind of playing it by ear because we're very steadfast that again at any moment the phone
Yeah.
could ring with a policy,
Right.
Change
Yes.
and
the
we can
whole
start letting
dynamic.
our camps know
Yeah.
that hey, the
Yes.
whole thing is shifting back.
Right.
We're back on track.
Right.
WPR. Can you still be here, or have you committed to this other location?
Right.
So that's created a lot of difficulty. But I just wanted to clarify: each week that goes by, and we're still in this dilemma, we are reaching out to subsequent camps to
Yeah.
find where we can serve.
Right.
What are their needs?
How can we help?
How
Right.
can we
How can
partner
we
with
help?
you? Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So most of the groups as well will always have either a tea party or a royal dinner, because some groups, they like to have a big pizza party for the birthday party, and then other groups, they want to have like their formal dinner, for the birthday party day. So Max's group, they always do their big formal dinner for the birthday party because that goes along with everything, right? So because they were misplaced this year, they had to tweak a few things for what they were going to do. So they combined the tea party and the dress up part of it into a like royal brunch is what they called
fun.
it. And so then they had like hot apple cider
Yeah.
and they had cookies and some things like that. So they kind of had to combine both of them. And what's fun about that is that the girls always get to go through and pick a dress. So some of the donated dresses
Yes.
that you guys
Yes.
donated,
Yeah.
we actually were able to take up to
Yes.
camp
So
Exactly.
good.
for the
Yes.
kids
So
to
good.
pick through, and they were all able, because on on Tuesday I think it was, the girls got to go through and actually pick their dress and
Right.
see which one they
Right.
wanted to wear, which one, oh, that one makes you look like Cinderella, oh, you look like evil Alice in Wonderland, oh, you look like this, oh. And so they were having so much fun digging
were
through the
cute.
dresses, and they all looked amazingly beautiful. And everybody, the counselors get dressed up,
Yeah,
and with
even
them,
I was in a dress.
yes, and the girls actually
Even I was in a dress.
Sure, it didn't
I can
happen.
share. We have a picture.
And
we
of
can
course, I
share.
had to be the most ridiculously girly dress that they could have ever
girls
picked.
picked it for her.
They did.
Yay.
They did.
And she wore it.
It was cute. They're like,
See
"You're
me
gonna
in
look
lime
so
green."
beautiful." I'm like,
My most unfavorite color to wear is lime green, and they put me in a lime green.
Right.
Hilarious.
right?
But like some of the dresses obviously wouldn't go over us. So like for Mom and I, we basically just kind of put our arms through the sleeves and then
then just
kind of
pinned
pinned
it to
it
the
onto
side.
us because we couldn't even
Yeah.
get it over our
like an apron.
shoulders.
That's
so funny.
So because some of the dresses were real little, but it was still a lot of
Yeah.
fun. And then the other thing that they do too is that they always have the girl counselors, like the junior girl counselors, help escort in the boys, and the boys always get dressed up like in a tie and
Yeah.
a vest and a suit coat or whatever. And then with the girls, the boy counselors help bring
Escort
them
the
in, and they
girls.
get escorted, and then they get their picture in front of the backdrop and stuff. And it's always such a fun thing to witness because the girls are all like, I'm so pretty, and we did their hair
Oh, yeah.
and all of it. So it was just, it's always a fun thing to see.
There was
Yeah.
one of the little ladies that did not want to take her dress off.
Yes, that was a
It
meltdown.
was like she sat and cried for 15 minutes
Yes, she
before she
did.
finally took it off, but she did not want to part with it. But she got to take it home.
Yes, she did.
And I just want to say again to the viewers out there, thank you so much
Yes.
for participating because
Yeah,
you're knocking
very
it out
impactful.
of the ballpark.
Well, and I can
Yes,
say
these
that
girls
that
are
was
loving it.
very special for all of my girls because they did end up graduating. And I actually had only one of the girls in my cabin had actually been here for the last couple years, and she remembered who I was from, being with the animals and everything.
Yeah.
But she did not want to leave this year, and she was not looking forward to Friday all week. But she was so happy that she could take her dress home. She told me like a million times that she loved that she was able to take her dress home.
I love
Yeah,
that.
because with Max's group, usually they just reuse the same dresses. But again, because of all of the donations you
Yes.
guys made, we were able to tell them this year,
Yes.
hey, the girls get to keep their dresses, even if the
Yes.
counselors put theirs back because they don't need the dress.
Right.
It's still special for the little girls
Yes.
to take their dress home, and
Sure.
because then they have the picture of them in the dress,
Right.
and they can take the
Yeah.
dress home
Yes.
with them. So it was very, very meaningful that
Yes.
this year they got to keep their dress.
Absolutely.
And just for the record, dresses are being made available to any of the camps that want them.
Yes.
If they cannot come
Right,
get them, we're
right.
delivering them.
Yes.
And,
So-
and it's been other things too, like the use of our life jackets.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Life
so a lot
jackets,
of our
other
equipment,
Equipment.
Yeah.
and we can
loaning.
do that because
Yes.
again, our supporters have
Yes.
helped us procure
Yeah.
these things.
Right.
Yes.
But no, these kids, Katie, they have a memory. These kids
Yep.
won't forget you.
No, they
Um,
don't.
The first day of camp at lunch, one of the boys that also identified himself as a runner, who had been at Whispering Ponies Ranch last year, but he's new to all of these people.
Right, right.
But he knows our staff. I recognized him.
Yeah.
Little Marcus. he's a runner, right?
Yep.
He was the one that had the all alert message go out over the radios. Make sure you lock your vehicles, put your keys
Oh
away.
my gosh, yeah. We had a new
Hide the
policy
keys to
last
the
year.
tractors.
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
like
Marcus policy.
he was, yeah, shut the kitchen, make sure windows are locked. But anyway,
Oh my goodness.
last year I had forgotten this. This is how I know these kids remember stuff. But I walked up to Marcus and I said, I remember you. And I swear, he goes, just like this. He goes, I remember you too. And I said, you do? And he goes, yeah, you told me I was a funny guy. He looked right at me and said, you told me I was a funny guy. And
I remember that at the zip
I
line.
remember that because he was being really loud and kind of obnoxious last year, but he was getting some razzmatazz out of the kids. How do you frame
Class
this, right?
clown.
Right? Yeah, no, exactly.
Yes.
So hey guys, we got a comedian here. We got a funny guy. This guy's hilarious. Tell me another one. You do that kind of stuff a million times.
Yeah,
you
right.
forget
Right.
some of
Oh,
them.
sure.
But he knew the minute he saw my face. That's the guy that said I was funny. So anyway.
Yep.
I swear to you, we could go on and on and
Yeah.
on and on and on at
Yeah.
nauseum, at infinitum. This week,
We will have more stories.
we will
to
have
tell.
more. We will have more to tell because
come.
my family is likely this afternoon going to Kansas now to join a camp there that's in progress as we speak to help
Yes.
support them in
Yeah.
whatever ways they need.
Right.
But friends, in lieu of this totally unplanned challenge
Yes.
that you can already see is bearing a different kind of fruit,
Yeah.
as we're networking now with new facilities, as they've received heads up, the circumstances that we're facing now, would you join us in prayer that God will find us a policy that we can afford?
Right.
Yes.
Kind of a two-part prayer.
Right.
Not just a random policy that
Right.
drives us into the red,
Right.
but a good policy that would allow us to reenact camps
Yes.
immediately
Absolutely.
here at
Immediately.
Whispering Ponies Ranch,
Yeah.
but also one that is financially affordable.
Yes.
Because the other part of this is, God, is there a lesson here? Are you rearranging the model?
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing in this cyclone of moving parts,
Yeah.
but we are very addicted now
Right.
to the model that exists.
Right.
And anything that would start to probe the edges of that in terms of change or a restructure or
Tinker
whatever,
with it.
I'd have to be convinced that God is literally just shutting off the levers that used to exist in trade for new ones.
Yeah.
But regardless, our family, this ministry remains completely galvanized.
Yes.
We have not changed our focus as a ministry one
Right.
iota. We remain completely committed
Yeah.
to these kids. They are infinitely worth it.
Absolutely.
And the impact of what this ministry is able to do is difficult to even describe. You kind of just have to be there. So would you pray with us
Yes.
that God will find us a policy and that it'll be one that is sustainable moving forward so that we can instantly
Yes, please.
resume having these camps on location
Right.
at Whispering Ponies Ranch.
Yeah, we're ready to welcome them
We're
back.
ready to go The
Yeah.
facilities are screaming for
Yes.
the busy bodies of
Yes.
little children to come
Yeah.
and find Jesus.
It's so strange to go
Absolutely.
out there right now.
It is.
It's so strange.
So until we come back with more stories, which we will as this summer plays out, we'll do everything we can to keep you up to date and informed as to what Whispering Ponies Ranch and Skywatch TV is up to. For everybody here on panel, I'm Joe Artis Horn. Keep your eyes on the prize, which is Jesus Christ. We'll be back.